And a good way of solving these is whatever the denominators are, that's what we're going to multiply by, and that basically cancels out any fractions you have. So right here we have a 12. I'm going to multiply both sides by 12. I always start with the biggest number first, because you'll notice here, if you do the 12 over 6 here, you end up with a 2 over 1. So a lot of times they have common factors, so that'll cancel out. So if you notice on the right side of this equation, there is no longer a fraction. On the left side, there's also this 12 over 12 is going to cancel. So then you're going to be left with x plus 3 is equal to 5 times 2, which is 10. Okay, then we're going to subtract 3 from both sides, and you have your final answer to be 7. It is also important to check that every single time you find one of these answers, make sure that you don't have an excluded value where we would be dividing by 0 anywhere. In this case, we would not be dividing by 0, so we're good to go for this one. All right, so we have another rational equation right here to solve. First thing I want you to notice, though, is that there are variables in the denominators of every single one of these terms. Okay, so essentially the old rules of math still apply where you can't divide by 0. That means that a plus 2 cannot be equal to 0. Okay, as well as a minus 2 cannot be equal to 0, and also the a squared minus 4 cannot be equal to 0. Okay, I'm going to separate these out a little bit here. So what this helps us find is the possible excluded values for solving this. So if we solve this out here, a cannot be equal to negative 2 because you'd be dividing by 0. If you solve this out, you add 2 on both sides. A cannot be equal to positive 2. So if we solve this last one out, you get a squared is equal to 4. And if you square root both sides, you get a cannot be equal to plus or minus 2. Okay, these all should be not equal to's right here. So if you notice, those two values, basically 2 and negative 2, cannot be used as the answer. So that's kind of good to write that down initially, just in case we do come across those as the answer. So let's solve this out here. First thing I'm going to do is factor everything. So the 1 over a plus 2 is already factored, so we're good to go there. The other one is 1 over a minus 2, that's already factored. So we just have to factor this denominator over here, which is going to be the quantity a plus 2 times the quantity a minus 2. So we end up with something like that. Okay, I'm going to multiply both sides by the denominators, which in this case is going to be a plus 2 times a minus 2. I'm going to multiply both sides by this. Now from here, it's going to cancel out on the right side there. And on the left side, we're going to have to distribute this whole thing right here to each of these terms. Okay, the first one, you're going to be left with a plus 2 times a minus 2 times the quantity 1 over a plus 2. Okay, for the other one, you're going to end up with the same thing with the a plus 2 and the a minus 2, only this time we're going to be multiplying it by 1 over a minus 2. And this is all going to be equal to 4, because that's the only thing left on this side over here. It's 4. Okay, from here, I'm going to cancel out the a plus 2 and the a plus 2. So you're going to be left with a minus 1 over here. Here, we're going to cancel out the a minus 2. And you're going to be left with just a plus 2 here is equal to 4. Okay, now from here, I'm going to combine the a's, so you end up with 2a. The negative 2 and positive 2 cancel, so you're left with 2a is equal to 4. And if you solve that out, you end up with a equals 2. But the problem with this is a cannot be equal to 2, because if that was the case, you'd be dividing by 0. So because 2 is not actually the answer, it's not a possible answer because it's an excluded value. Let me write that down really quick. Excluded value. Because it's an excluded value, the answer for this one would just be no solution. All right, on to the next one. All right, for this one, I'm going to factor everything. Well, first, let's figure out which ones cannot be values for x. So x cannot be equal to 6, x cannot be equal to 2, and this one right here we would have to factor out, and it factors out to x minus 6 and x minus 2. Okay, and this cannot be equal to 0, but if you notice, we already have that x can't be equal to 6 and x can't be equal to 2 anyway, here and here, so it's kind of redundant. We don't need to necessarily solve for that again, but if we did, it would be x cannot be equal to 6 or 2. Okay, now let's simplify this out here. factor everything first. These are already factored, so we just need to factor this part over here, which is going to be x minus 6 times x minus 2. Okay. Now from here, I'm going to multiply both sides by x minus 6 and x minus 2. Okay, and then we're going to simplify everything here. So this is going to cancel, cancel, cancel. You're left with 4 on this side. And then when we distribute this thing to this right here, the x minus 6's are going to cancel, so you're just going to be left with x minus 2. All right, so then when you distribute the x minus 6 to the x minus 2, the x minus 2's are going to cancel, but you're going to be left with x times x minus 6. This is going to be equal to 4. Okay, from here I'm going to simplify everything real quick by distributing here. So you're going to be left with x squared minus 6x plus x minus 2 is equal to 4. Right, from here I'm going to combine like terms, so you end up with x squared minus 5x, and I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, so you get minus 6 here is equal to 0. Okay, from here I'm going to factor this, and you should get x minus 6 times x plus 1 is equal to 0. Okay. So when you solve this out over here, the two solutions you'll get are going to be x is equal to 6 and x is equal to negative 1. But this is where you have to recall that x cannot be equal to 6. Okay, because it's an excluded value, it would cause a division by 0 in the original equation. So because of that, 6 is not a possible answer, so only negative 1 is going to be the solution to that original rational equation. So for this next one, we have 7 over b plus 3 plus 5 over b minus 3 plus 10b minus 2 all over b squared minus 9. First thing I'm going to do is handle all the excluded values or the possible excluded values. B cannot be equal to negative 3 or positive 3, and that's just by solving every single one of these denominators, setting it equal to 0, and solving. Okay, so those are the excluded values that are potentially can occur with this equation. All right, first thing I'm going to do is factor everything out. So the two terms on the left side of the equation are already factored, so we just need to factor the right side of the equation, which is going to be the following. All right, from here I'm going to multiply both sides by this denominator. All right, so all this stuff is going to cancel now. And you're going to be left with 7 times b minus 3 plus 5 times b plus 3 is equal to 10b minus 2. So you really didn't need to factor that, but that's okay. From here, I'm going to distribute, and you get 7b minus 21 plus 5b plus 15 is equal to 10b minus 2. Okay, I'm going to subtract 10b from both sides, so you should be left with 2b over here on the left. I'm going to add 21 on both sides, and then I'm going to subtract 15, so you should get 4 on both sides, or 4 on that side then, and your b would be equal to 2 in this case, and 2 is not an excluded value, so that is the answer for that one. All right, for this next one, right away, we're going to do the excluded values, or the possible excluded values, so it should be p cannot be equal to 0, or equal to 4, because that would cause a division by 0 here and here. And you can't have divisions by 0. So from here now, I am going to factor everything, which it already is factored. So what I'm going to do is multiply both sides by p times p minus 4. Okay, and the reason for this is because the p and the p minus 4 represent all the denominators that we have here. So this p is going to cancel here, and you're going to be left with p minus 6 times p minus 4. Okay, and on the left side, we're going to distribute this to both of these terms, so this one and this one over here. The first distribution is just going to end up being a 1, and the second distribution is just going to be a p times p minus 4 here, so you end up with something like that. Okay, I'm going to expand everything out. So on the left side, you're going to be left with p squared minus 4p plus 1 is equal to p squared minus 10p plus 24. Okay, from here I'm going to subtract off the p squareds from both sides. I'm going to add 10p to both sides, so you're going to be left with 6p. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, and you're going to be left with 23. On the right side, divide both sides by 6, and you get your value for p to be 23 over 6, which is not in one of the excluded values. So that is the solution for this equation. So it's a video on solving rational equations. If you have any questions about anything in this video, let me know.